All right. Here we go.
I get too deep sometimes. In my own head, unstitch the fabric to find a common thread. Got caught up in the hustle, forgot to love. Woke up in the rubble to a light from above. Racing to the end of the earth. I know I'm probably not the first, but I'm gonna be the last one standing. Ain't gonna dream, just demand it.
Thanks for coming back. And there's something really I want that's on my mind that I've noticed. One of these noticed videos again. I noticed have been a lot of content creators and a lot of specifically photography content and kind of some tech content out there, and they all are talking, or some of them are talking about the Hasselblad X1D, and they're talking about this medium format camera that came out from Hasselblad. If you don't know Hasselblad, they are a very old company. They make great cameras and they make very expensive equipment. And I've noticed that there's a bunch of people out there talking about the X1D, and it got me thinking about medium format again, and it got me thinking specifically about why I switched from medium format. So really kind of like, I started in photography and I started in film, 35 millimeter film, shooting sports. Like, that was it. And as I moved closer and closer into a more commercial realm and into a more fashion realm, I understood and I realized that I needed to start shooting with digital first and foremost, and at the same time as I needed to move into the realm of a larger format, because in the past, large format was the highest resolution you can get. Typically in a studio setting, you're looking at an 8x10 camera with an 8x8 inch by 10 inch sheet of film. And that way, and the reason why we all went, or a lot of photographers went that route, is because the larger the piece of the film, the smaller the grain is when you scan it or when you produce the work, and the smaller the grain it is, the more detail you can get. So if you can imagine, if you have a 35 millimeter framed negative and the grain is exactly the same size, the smaller the image, which is on that little negative, that means the grain is going to be bigger. So, and that's the same for everything, for all the digital formats. Generally speaking, like, there's noise now instead of grain, so that's what we have to live with. So I went down that, medium format road, like, very specifically because in the industry that I was tackling, they always wanted that. They wanted to know what you were shooting with, because if you shot with something that their uncle had, or like a cousin had, or somebody down the line had, then that means you weren't a professional. Somebody that wasn't a professional, if they had your camera, that means you weren't a professional, and that would affect the amount of jobs that you would get. So my first kind of foray into medium format digital was with the Hasselblad H3D, and it was a 39 megapixel medium format monster. It was a studio camera. You can shoot ISO 25, 50, and 100, and if you're kind of lucky, you might be able to get an ISO 200 out of it. But rarely, and 400 was just completely unusable. But the sensor was massive. The sensor was big. The lenses were amazing. The system itself was great, but it was a slow and big camera, and it was meant for studio and meant for, big projects. And when it first, I don't even remember how much when it first came out, but I'm, roughly, you're looking at somewhere in the, $30,000 range for a camera and a camera system. And as I got more clients and I moved into a studio and I worked honing my craft, industries started changing a little bit. Canon started coming out with beautiful cameras, and it was really started to kind of eat away at that medium format market share. And in the end, like, really at that point, there was there was only a little bit of shift in that. We saw big photographers like Annie Leibovitz and Mira Testino, and a lot of big photographers really going towards a digital SLR as part of their workflow on top of the medium format, because again, they needed something that was a little more manageable in size, that had a little more flexibility in shooting range and lenses and all these things. And I kind of similarly did the same thing. I bought a 5D, had a 5D, and I had a 5D Mark II alongside my Hasselblad. Alongside my Hasselblad, and everything was great. As I started shooting more and progressing more with my work and my career, the industry changed again, and it was less. I kept on hearing less about what camera are you shooting with from art directors, creative directors, people that would typically hire a photographer on the agency side. They would ask less and less of that. What are you shooting with? And so at that point, I started thinking, well, if they're not completely concerned with this, then why am I adding this extra cost that potentially is I'm losing clients because I have to bill in the cost of a $30,000 to $50,000 camera into my work? So that didn't make much sense. So fast forward, I take a look at my gear, I take a look at what I have and what I can do, and I decide, that's it. I need something versatile, because the industry is changing so much, because the way we're creating images, the way we're creating content, the way we are getting hired has changed so much that the need for big, expensive gear, equipment to produce, a magazine editorial, a billboard ad, all these things have changed, because really in the end, all you really need for a magazine is an 8 to 10 megapixel camera that has good lenses, because you can't lenses are really important, and that is basically bulletproof, something that will last you time and you can rely on time and time again. So I looked at my options and I went down different roads to try it out, and then I landed on this, what I'm shooting this video on right now, Sony A7R2, 42 megapixels, shoots 4K, shoots 1080, shoots at 120 frames a second. It has a flat video profile, which is great for color grading, and it allows me to be versatile, because more so now than ever before, photographers, creatives, videographers, graphic designers, we're all expected to, at some level, at some day, we're all expected to be able to do everything. In the end, I looked at the files on the A7R2 and I said, you know what, this is as close to a medium format, in a full frame body as I'm gonna get. The way that it handles the raw files and how much I can manipulate it and how much detail I have. Primary reason is versatility. I moved into that system primarily because of versatility. what matters is what you're shooting. Your voice, your particular voice that is going to shape your narrative and tell that story. And that's what most people are looking for right now. Thanks again. If you like what I'm kind of doing here, then please hit that like button. If you want to stay up to date as to on what content that comes out, hit that subscribe. Don't forget to tap that notifications so that you're one of the first viewers. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. I would love to answer some of your questions, and I'd love to get to them, and help people, because we have to foster this as a community to help each other grow and help each other create, because we all have voices that we all deserve to have a voice on whatever platform you want or you decide. Thanks again. I do appreciate you guys stopping in, sticking with me, and I will see you on the next video, I hope. Bye.